I went down to the spiral staircases. Both sets of gates were still closed and padlocked. She was nowhere to be seen. Now, I don't believe in ghosts or spirits or anything else like that, so I wasn't going to accept the fact that something pretty spooky was going on. So I called to my colleague in the operations room to check the CCTV cameras to find out where she could have disappeared to. He checked over 100 cameras and there was no one to be seen. Looking back at my experience at Bank Monument on that particular evening, being the sceptic that I am, it'll stay with me for the rest of my life as to why I can't come up with a logical explanation as to what happened.
There are thousands of staff who work behind the scenes of the underground, keeping the network moving, clean and maintained. And nearly all of these jobs take place at night when the system is closed to the public. Some jobs are more unusual than others, such as the fluffers, who collect human hair from the tunnels, blown in from people waiting on the platforms. Paul Fisher, who now works at head office, was training to be a manager in 1984, when he was asked to walk the tunnels of the Northern Line. Part of his training was to understand the procedures for all of the different tasks at first hand. And one such job Paul was required to experience was track walking, a job that involves walking on your own along the tunnels between stations after the trains have stopped, with just a torch for light.
During the walk, I think that was between Oval and Stockwell stations, I came across this clearing, bigger piece of tunnel, and there was a guy working there, and what struck me was that he had one of these old oil-type ghastly tilly lamps, used to call them. And I remember thinking that I'm sure these have been done away with. Safety reasons, I guess, and everybody had battery torches nowadays. So I said to this guy, I remember he looked old to me then, he's probably my age now. I said, I'm surprised you got one of those old lamps. And I forget what he said exactly, but something along the lines that he liked it better than the battery jobs. I never thought much about it. I asked him, what is this place, this clearing? He said, oh, this is South Island Places. And I forget what he explained what he did. And that was it, really. A quick chat, and I continued walking down the tunnel to the next station, which was Stockwell, and that was where the end of my track walk was. So I phoned this chap up, told him my name, and said I've just done a walk from here to there. And I was now clear of the track. He said, fine, okay. And just by chance, I asked him what the other guy was doing up South Island Place. I thought I'd drop that in, be a bit clever, you know. And he said, what other guy? Well, I just spoke to a guy up at South Island Place, he called it. He said, I haven't got anybody booked in my logs tonight to be working there. I said, well, there is somebody working. I just spoke to him. If you're sure that you saw somebody down there, we certainly don't have anybody booked in for that piece of track. We'll have to search the tunnel. So as a tunnel search had to go ahead. So I've gone back into the tunnel, and he's come the other way. And after about 20 minutes, we met in the middle. And this old fellow with the lamp is nowhere to be seen. It's a little unnerving, because it didn't kind of make sense. And the search had taken a long time. And as a result of that, the first trains had to be held up, which is not a popular thing to do. And I remember the worst part about it was that my trainer was now interviewing me in kind of a semi-disciplinary sense, because I'd delayed the trains and he wanted to know why. So I told him this story. And I remember he gave me a very old-fashioned look. He said, you know about South Island Place and the ghost stories, do you? So I said, no, I'm sure he didn't believe me. And this was getting worse by the minute. And he said that there was a myth about some old guy had been hit by a train and killed donkeys years ago. I've no idea when. And there was supposed to be a ghost down there. He said he gave me a very sideways look, and I'm sure he thought I was winding him up. So I've kept stum ever since.
John Graham was a station foreman and was alone working the night shift at Bethnal Green, a station on the Central Line in East London in early spring 1981.
As normal, up to the last train, everything, staff went home and everything, and I just secured the station and just went back to the office, started doing some paperwork because all the staff had gone home. Put some of the station lights off, and all of a sudden I was just sitting there and heard a sound of children crying at first, and I dismissed it as nothing really, and then all of a sudden it seemed to get sort of loud, and then all of a sudden there was voices of women and people screaming and loud noises, a combination of everything. It built up to quite a frightening situation really. It seemed to go on for about 10 or 15 minutes. And it was just like as people were panicking, to the point I left the office and I went up to the top of the booking hall and remained, the majority of the time I was frightened to go back to the office because of the noise down there. It was quite frightening actually. Well, even when I go through Bethnal Green to this day, I can't forget it, you know. It's frightening really actually.
Of the 173 people that died at Bethnal Green, only 27 were men. The remaining 146 were women and children. Although infrasound alone could never offer an explanation as to why John heard the women and children's voices, it could explain any strange feelings. We took Vic Tandy to the station to see if he could put his audio expertise into practice and find a possible explanation for the strange noises.
This is the station office at Bethnal Green, where the person was reporting feeling strange feelings that then led on to him hearing screams. So I thought it'd be legitimate to measure infrasound in here, to see if there is any infrasound which might have been implicated in that. And then we'll go out and do some experiments outside. I'm getting breathless. Yeah, I don't know why I'm getting breathless. Is it very high in here? Hang on. About 80 dB.
After testing for infrasound in the Bethnal Green office, Vic made a recording of the ticket hall. He electronically simulated the frequencies of a female scream from outside the station's 3 entrances and recorded them to see if the sound would behave in an unusual way.
The blue represents a frequency which is equivalent to a female scream, and you can see that it stands out quite clearly. So it is quite possible for people to hear sounds from outside the station within the ticket office itself. It may be that in this particular case the infrasound might lay down the sort of context. It might make the person feel a bit uneasy to begin with. And the test that we did show that sounds from outside the ticket hall could sound inside the ticket hall. We can't obviously say for sure, but at least we know that sounds from outside can sound as though they're coming from the ticket hall itself.
The idea of ghosts keeping station staff company and travelling with everyday commuters is not a new one. In fact, there are dozens of stories that circulate around the network and staff. Rumours such as the Bakerloo Line passenger. When sitting on the Bakerloo Line, travelling northbound, apparently you can sometimes see the reflection of someone sitting in the seat next to you, even though the seat is actually empty. The dead body train is widely reported to have run in earlier parts of the last century. The tunnel, which is now bricked up, is believed to have run from London Hospital to Whitechapel. The train carried nothing but dead passengers to the station. Anne Naylor was murdered in the 18th century. Her screams are reported to be heard on the platforms of Farringdon Station.